Welcome to Momentum Investing, property investing made easy. One of the world's top podcasts on property investing, bringing you the top experts in the field so you can learn firsthand what it takes to create passive income and take control over your financial future.
How to make every property deal successful. Welcome to Momentum Property Education and the Momentum Investing Podcast. In today's interview with Ben Chai, I interviewed him about how does he make his property deals successful. He's been investing for over 30 years, done thousands of deals, and he has one trick that no matter if he does a deal that doesn't pan out according to plan, which he's made a lot of, or deals that have gone well. It doesn't matter if he pays too much for a property or if he charges too low a rent. This one trick that he has makes sure that every single deal that he does becomes a success. Are you ready to learn from Ben what that key is? Well, let's get into the interview. Please make sure you subscribe to the Momentum Investing Podcast and the Momentum Property Education YouTube channel, because every single week we give you updates on the economy, updates on what is going on so you can position yourself in the best way possible. We interview experts every week from all over the world so that you may take that next step on your property journey and grow as an entrepreneur, as a person, and investor. And we also do videos on property strategies and passive income. So please make sure you subscribe so you don't miss any of that. And please like this video. If you like learning about property investing, passive income, click like. It tells YouTube that this is the type of videos you want to see more of. And of course, it helps us get the word out to more people. So we really appreciate it. And as a thank you, we will plant the tree for each like we get on this video or any of our YouTube videos. We have a partnership with Eden Reforestation Projects where as a result of you clicking that like button, we will plant a tree. So please help us out, please help out the world, and let's learn what is that one key, that one technique that makes every deal a success. Welcome to the Momentum Investing Podcast. I am here with none other than Ben Chai. Welcome back to the show, my friend.
Hi, it's great to see you again, Daniel.
Long time no see, way too long, my friend. And
Wow.
It's super exciting to have you back on the show. You're always doing exciting things. We just had a conversation about the exciting projects you got. And what I wanted to discuss today is something I think will really, really help, people starting out in property who are kind of going through, maybe even done their first deal, their second deal, or just purely starting out. I mean, you've been doing this for a while. Surprisingly long. You look younger, my friend. But if you started over today without the context you have, without all the what you've created, if you had to start over, how would you go about it as a property investor? How would you build your empire back?
Right. Well, I actually have lost my empire several times. So I've actually.
So you've practiced this question. You were preparing for this interview. That's what it was.
If you remember, the original way my empire in the world of property started was I was actually just buying property at normal market value and renting it out. So in those days, first of all, property wasn't a thing. It really wasn't. People didn't really invest in property. There were about 250 of us. And I literally was given property at discounts. I didn't know that they were great discounts or anything like that. It was just that I was given those properties because I was adding value to the people who sold them to me. If I can give you an example of when I started, my first property, which I bought, I bought from somebody I knew from the church I went to, and they wanted to move, and because I was at the church, I guess, I didn't get the property at a massive discount, but it was less than what it was, and the mortgage broker also was a friend of mine, and I couldn't afford the mortgage broker kind of scenario because you've got to jump through a whole bunch of hoops to get the mortgage.
Yeah.
But in those days, he could mess with it, and so I got a mortgage. My second property was from the neighbor next door who passed away, and her children came and knocked on my door and said, "You always looked after my mum, so my grandmother, so well." They were a bit older than me, these people. "We would like to give you this property at a massive discount rate." This is what the estate agents have said the property price is. And so, you know, in today's world, the property is now worth about 400,000, and they were literally offering me that property at about 210. So back then it would have been something like the property price was probably about 80,000. They were offering it to me about 40,000, 2,000. Now in those days, I was not really, I never understood property, and my family did not want me to get into property because they'd always lost money in property. So that, you know, this is just selling their own houses.
Yeah.
And so they got very angry when they found out I'd bought this property, which I had no clue what I was going to do with it. So I rented it out to students. Right. And at the time, the estate agents did not have a student kind of criteria. So when I went to the estate agents, the letting agents, they said, "Students, why are you doing that? That's stupid." Right. And what I did was I went to the shops and I put my notice in it, and I said, "Hey, blah 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 blah, house ready for students." And I got some wonderful postgraduates who came and lived in my place. Yeah. They were geologists. They loved rocks, pet rocks. They used to, no, literally, they used to have their rocks on the windowsill because it was like that. They were stroking their rock and stuff. It really was like that. And they were wonderful, wonderful people. Now, I was then offered another property by a lady at the end of the street. So I had number 3. Number 2 had sold to me. Number 1 was a single nurse who, again, I used to look after her garden and stuff like that. And for no, I didn't charge for it. And she said, "Oh, I noticed you bought number 2. Would you like to buy my property?" And she also wanted to let me have her property because she, at a good price, because she was moving to a different hospital. When I told my family about it, they got very, very angry, said, "You know, if you buy this property, we'll disown you, blah, 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 blah." So I actually didn't buy that property at the time. Right. So anyway, that's what happened. Now,
but I love that. Just let me, because you said you bought them at great prices because you were adding value to the people selling.
Correct. But I'd been adding value to them like years before. Exactly.
That's what I am so impressed by, because so many people talk about, you know, adding value at the moment of transaction. Right. It's, you know, you could have helped with the move, or you could have, you know, facilitated that in somehow. And that would have been great, but that's then and there. But because you just generally been a nice guy for years, you were getting these amazing opportunities.
Yeah, I mean, that carried on for quite a while, actually. So I was literally going around just having chats with the old lady at number 2 and the lady at number 1, just because they were lonely, or they didn't know how to change their light bulb because they're a bit frail, or whatever it is.
So, yeah, and that this is not you targeting old ladies like they will die and I'll buy their home someday. It's just you being a quality neighbor.
Yes, if only I understood business in those days, maybe I would have targeted old ladies, and I'd have this. I'd be a whatever.
Well, karma does play a part in it too, though. So I think your karma did better for you than a targeted strategy of old ladies ever could. So I like that, and that's what I just wanted to kind of highlight is I love the way you were creating value.
Yeah. So anyway, those were the first few properties. Now, I had an issue. So you talk about karma, because the wrong person moved in at number 1, and the original nurse's house that I was going to buy. And this lady caused me immense problems. She was scratching our cars and stuff like that, or getting her kids to do that. So I had to move. And what happened was I had a company which sold for a lot of money, an education and training company in the tech world. And so I used to do training for Microsoft products and teach businesses how to use those products. Now, that company sold for a lot of money, and I moved house to a detached house. I also sold those two properties. And when I moved, I wanted to invest in more properties, but because my family was so against what I was wanting to do, I never told them. I never told them I bought them. So I bought my property, and then I bought this other property. Now, I didn't know that divorced people might sell you their property at massive discounts. So this property was offered to me, and it was a divorced couple. And I think the lady really wanted to mess up her husband. So I got this property at a really good price.
Right.
I used to look after the neighbor of that property, who was an old lady in a wheelchair and stuff. They sold me their property at a good price. And my godmother, when she passed away, in her will, she said to her son, if you don't want this flat, I'd like you to sell it to Ben. Right. So my he's like my cousin. And at the time, I had some real issues with my family, because they found out that a whole bunch of things, that I got all this property, and they wanted me to share the property with somebody else in my family who I didn't like. It was a long story, but they caused me a lot of problems anyway, and they spread a whole bunch of crap about me. But my cousin said, Ben, you've looked after my mum, who she was over 90. She was about 99, and I would go around and sit with her, just because she was my great aunt anyway. And so he went and spoke to all the estate agents, found out what they thought the price was, and then also sold it to me at a lower amount, in spite of all the bad mouthing that I had at the time. Yes. And I did say to him, look, if you think that what people are saying about me, this is my own family, is true, then you should probably not sell it to me. So I just said that to him. But he said, well, my mum said this about you, and I actually believe and trust my mum more than other people. So
That's sweet.
That was, so I don't think I would change how I bought property. Yeah, because that was all very accidental. But what I'm saying right now is, if you are, whatever you're doing, whatever your job, looking out and looking after other people, then probably something will happen to you. Now, people call it karma, but I don't actually believe in karma like that. So, whoa, and this is where Ben goes, oh, like, whoa, what do you mean there's no such thing as karma? I just think that if you're behaving in a certain way to people for no reason at all, then you're probably behaving like that to lots and lots of other people, and they naturally want to do something back for you. They don't want to feel obligated, or their family sees how you're looking after them. Today, I don't know how likely it is that people will get properties for adding value to other people just for no reason at all, because I think today the world is very different. First of all, property is a thing, it is an investment thing. Many of the people who sold me their properties didn't really need the money, so it wasn't a huge issue for them. But it is a thing, and people don't want to feel ripped off and stuff. So I don't know how well that would work, but I do know that I get loads and loads of offers and lots of people contacting me for deals, or to give me deals, because of the value that I've given to them for no reason at all. Like, hey, Ben, how can I get promoted on XYZ? Oh yeah, just do this. Here are some contacts, and that's it. Or Ben, what do you think of this? And if it's not going to cost me 4 hours of my time, if it costs me 10, 15 minutes, I'll probably tell you how to do it. Whereas other people are saying, hey, look, okay, if I'm going to help you out, I'm going to have to charge you, that kind of scenario. So just helping people for no reason at all, but not being sucked into other people's dramas.
No, exactly. Not spend 4 hours or 4 weeks
Correct.
on it, but
Correct.
10, 15 minutes, send a couple messages, that's fine.
Yeah.
And I mean, it's paid off in the best way ever. You've been a 3-time guest on the Momentum Investing podcast. I mean, does it get better than that?
I know. Well, that's my momentum. That's my trajectory. Daniel.
Exactly.
Yes.
Yeah, fighting for number 4.
Fighting for number 4.
Yeah, your fourth guest on. We'll have to look at that in the future.
Oh, I didn't know I was fighting for it.
Oh,
So probably the number one lesson really is don't be in. Well, I don't know if you swear on your podcast, but don't be a dickhead. Yeah, don't be, just be a kind person, but don't let your kindness be abused. Yeah, and you'll see. This is what I like about. Because I know you're based in Sweden, the Swedish people, most of the Swedish people are actually very, very lovely people. They're always trying to, from my perspective, and the Swedish people I've worked with, the majority are really genuine and nice, lovely people. And I loved it when I used to come and teach and train in Stockholm. So that's the number one thing. The second thing, that's the number one piece of advice. Second piece of advice from that journey that I'd still do again is don't believe people who've never done it before. Yeah. So I had a lot of criticism from my family, and it wasn't because they didn't want me to be successful. I have a lot of issues. I can be quite autistic in my socialization and stuff like that for a number of reasons. And they had lots of money in property. So I don't think that they were trying to stop me from being in property. It's just because they had no concept of property, and there was no property education in those days. So what I would say is, if it's something that's totally brand new, then you need to find your way. It's a bit like Elon Musk thinking about space travel or the electric. I mean, the electric car had been done before, but he was trying to do it to a different level. Nobody had been down that path. And so not really anyone had been down the property investment path when I started. But we do get really hurt, if you like, by family and friends who have no concept of property investing. And you really need to get education, a bit like from yourself, because I know you do a lot of, apart from the podcast, you offer a lot of free property education in terms of, hey, because you're always saying, let me tell you about 25 ways you can get finance for your properties. I think I've watched that one like 25 times at least. So.
Oh, very good.
So, and that's very useful to property investors. Yeah. So don't take advice in anything that you do from people who've never done it before. Either you're going to be a trailblazer, or you're going to go and find people who have done it before, which is probably a better way to do it, and see how they've done it.
Which is a great start by being here. You're learning from Ben as we speak. So well done for listening.
Well, thank you. Yes, you're probably getting some gems from me if you've never invested in property before, but you would get it anyway, because if it's something you really want to do, you'll get it not just from Momentum, but you'll just Google how do I do this? How do I do that? And that's the fourth thing, the fourth piece. Like, I didn't know how to let a property, and the estate agents didn't want to let to students. So I found a way. I just went and advertised in the local shops. In those days, we didn't have the internet. And that's literally what I did. I went and just advertised in the shops. I found a way. And if you believe in something so much, find a way. There are people who tell you to think out of the box. And in those days, I had to think out of the box. But there's nothing wrong with box thinking, which is really frustrates me a lot. I think box thinking is really good. And a lot of the education is thinking in the box, but real life, sometimes the box doesn't work and you have to think outside of it. This is something else you'll find in property, that you can get some education. The educator can't give you education for every scenario. So you're going to have to work some things out. And the educator won't have met every single scenario in their life either. So they might be specialized in one area of property. It might be in property with multiple people living in the property. It might be in small buy-to-lets. It might be in renting a property from someone else to rent out. They might have specialized knowledge, but they won't have seen every single scenario. Sometimes you're going to have to think for yourself. And I always like working with people who have thought for themselves, and they've gone in fact said, hey, Ben, here's my solutions. Which one do you think is best? And then I'll help them think through. So I want people to be critical thinkers. It's something I had to do. And it's not just thinking in the box, thinking out of the box, but also sometimes the box doesn't work. And that's what many of the innovators, not that everyone here is an Elon Musk or a Mark Zuckerberg or a Richard Branson, but they just, there's no box in, out that works with it. And you have to just think, hey, I just need to think totally differently. I would have got that kind of education from IT, where I was working in very different operating systems and I needed to make certain pieces of software work. And I would take something from one different operating system, a strategy we used, and bring it into the other operating system. So you will also see that many of the great property investors, what they've done is maybe they've worked in fashion, maybe they've worked in film, but they've brought some of the strategies from their industry in terms of either marketing or working with people into their world of property investing. So what have we got, Daniel? Can you summarize three starting out?
No, I love the things you're talking about, creating value, for the purpose of creating value, being a good person. I think that was the second one, that was being a good person. So, but no, I'm just sitting here kind of taking it in, how you're going about it. And I love what you said about, in the box thinking is actually good. It's, you don't want to think out of the box for the purpose of thinking out of the box, but sometimes you got to do. And I actually remember an episode of, I don't know if you ever saw this TV series, but it was Young Indiana Jones. Me and my dad would watch this, and it was a TV series built around how, Indiana Jones as a kid and how he would go and do all these amazing adventures. And there was one where I think he was in Florence, Italy or so, and he met Picasso and Monet. And, back then everyone was making fun of Picasso for his way of painting, right? Because it was so weird. It was so out of the box. And people were like, well, you can't paint. That's the issue. And there's this scene there where what happens is Picasso, he paints a perfect painting that could be a Monet. And at this time, Monet was an old man. So, Picasso was the young upstart. And so he shows this painting to Monet and he signs it Monet. And he says, like, see, look at this painting you did. And Monet's like, I don't even remember painting this. When did I do that? And he's like, well, you are getting old. He's like, yeah, I guess I am, because this is obviously my work. And he kind of whispers to Indy's like, well, I can smell. He's using the wrong type of paint, so it's not, but let's let him have his day. And it was just, Picasso proving like, look, I've made a perfect Monet. I can paint in the box. I can do your thing. And now that I can, now I can go out of the box and I can do, I can do my thing. I can be creative. But to go out of the box, you actually have to understand the box. Otherwise, you're just going around the box. And that's where I just thought that when you were talking about that, I just saw that episode of Young Indiana Jones, kind of going like, yeah, Picasso knew the box. He was as good. He could paint a Monet that the joke of the movie is that later at the end, it's actually being sold at an auction as a Monet. And old Indiana Jones is sitting there in the audience kind of laughing to himself, going like, well, actually, that is a Picasso and it would sell for 10 times as much, but I'm not going to tell them. And it's because he knew the box, and then he went out of the box.
So actually, that brings me to something I've taught my kids, actually, that when you want to get into any industry, learn the rules and play by the rules. Once you understand why the rules are there, break the hell out of them. because a lot of rules have been put in place to save people. Yeah, there's reasons why they're there, but they don't work for every single situation and scenario. And that's why I'm saying, like, if the rules don't work, or if the box doesn't work for what you're trying to achieve, then get out of it. Do something different, like your story about Picasso. So we've spoken about the thinking in the box, and you've just illustrated that so well with your story of the young Indiana Jones. And I think I did see a few episodes of that. I wasn't so invested in it, but hey, listen, today with all the streaming services, maybe I'll go back and have a look.
It was one of those, father-son memories that I have. So I'll always remember young Indiana Jones.
But I love those. I love Indiana Jones because he does traditionally think in the box, and then when the situations get out of hand, he then either has to think out of the box or get told. It's why I love Doctor Who. Again, just doesn't stay like, okay, if this is how I need to behave, then and gets me so far, then that's how I'll do it. But if it doesn't serve me, then why should I behave?
Why continue down a path that isn't working?
So we've said adding value to people, very, very important. And this is something I'm now doing in the acting world, as I like to be a top actor. And I've started working with a lot of actors. They have a number of issues in their lives. And so again, because I have understanding of business and so on, that I can help them without, charging and so on. So I'm getting to know them. They're coming to talk to me, social magnetism. Hey, Ben, can you help me with this? Can you help me with getting venues for X, Y, Z? Because when you're in property, you know tons and tons about venues and what's available and so on. So that's the first thing, adding value. The second piece of advice was to work with the rules, and then for example, student letting today, there's many estate agents that will do student letting, but they may not do
service departments, for example, which is popular.
So then you would have to think out of the box to do a service department. So I have got one agent that does do service departments, but he wasn't very good at it. So I have to take the properties back from him in that case. So yes, you do need to think how to out of the box sometimes, or in the box. Those are two pieces of advice. the third piece of advice that I would also give is to start small. When I've met a lot of property investors, they have been taught, these are newbies, to think big. We want you to think big. We want you to think, what is it? And great, I love it that people think big, but as you're growing your knowledge, start small. And there's a reason for this. Because you're new, no matter how much education you've got, there'll be that kind of initial, yes, we can do it. And Daniel and Ben, they've taught me how to do it. They're infallible. Like, I've got all the knowledge, so I can do anything. And you feel that in your first 30 days. And that really isn't the case. Yeah.
No, I can vouch for that. I mean, we jumped in we did 5 deals right away. The biggest one being 3 blocks of flats three terraced houses that we converted to 11 in total flats. And these were the first deals we did. Over those 5 deals, we ended up losing 400,000 pounds.
Wow.
So I agree, start small and scale from there, because we had to kind of restart and try to rebuild from that point. And that was really, really hard. Starting from a negative 400 rather than starting from 0. I mean, I would love to start from 0. It's so much easier. and that's where, if you grow from there, it is a lot quicker in the end.
So absolutely, Daniel, start small. Start with a small buy-to-let. Yes, it doesn't give you as much money. Now, I actually started with an HMO. I didn't know it was an HMO because they weren't called HMOs. HMOs are house of multiple occupation, where 2 or more different families live together. And that was my student accommodation. But that was only because I didn't know anything better. The house price was still relatively small. So even though I messed up, which I did quite a bit, I didn't know what I was doing. All I wanted in those days, because there was no property education, was to buy 4 houses in a row and build a hotel, knock them all down and build a hotel. Because, my best education in property in those days was the Monopoly board. Literally, that's what I thought. Today, I know you can't do that because of a whole bunch of things. There's planning permissions and so on. But, if you can just start small.
I love that, though. I love that you were playing Monopoly with it in the real world.
I really was.
Yeah.
And I thought that also property prices go up, that it didn't matter if I bought at a market value, because after 10, 15 years, I could sell one of the properties off and it would pay down all the other properties I purchased. I mean, all of that is still true, but it's not how I would do property today. I'm just showing you the evolution of my thought processes. And so that's why I literally not only wanted to have 2, because I was living at 3, but I wanted to buy number 1, which was very, very big. It was a corner plot. And I could have built my hotel if I wanted to. Just on an aside, a funny, if you like, aspect is I probably do have a hotel with the number of properties I have today. So remember, a hotel is just a large building with lots of rooms being rented out.
Very true.
So all I have is lots of buildings with lots of rooms, but it could be equivalent to a hotel. So think small, and you're going to make mistakes. I made mistakes. I just wanted the rent to pay for the mortgage. That's all I wanted it to do. So I never charged market rents anyway, until the letting agents caught up with students. And then I gave it to the letting agents, and they charged double what I ever charged for renting my houses out, which was the market rate.
Yeah.
And the other thing is, even though they're students, I'm trying to add value, so still keeping up the property and making sure it's a good property. Now, that's helped me in terms of renting out. A lot of the previous landlords, they didn't look after the property. They literally didn't. And I used to go to other landlords' houses and just have a look around. How did I do that? Well, if there was a student renting there, I'd say, do you mind if I can come and see the property? And it used to be terrible, honestly, some of these places.
Yeah, I've seen that too much. I mean, even in my career, which is almost, I mean, we're closing in on a decade, so it's a lot shorter than your experience. But even that, you know, we've seen a lot of really bad properties, and you know, that's often the life cycle with an HMO. A landlord buys it, refurbs it up to a good standard, and then over the next decade it decays. And then when it's so bad that, you know, needs a full refurb, they sell it, and a new landlord comes in and it goes through the same process. And that's where I think it's important to be that quality landlord, take care of your properties and make sure that people actually have quality living.
Yeah. Absolutely. There are still some what we call slum landlords around. I know a few who will stack people in the houses. He charges a little bit less rent. He's off the off the view of the HMRC, the government, and if anyone complains about the inhumane, so essentially he might have a 3-bedroom and he has probably 20 people living in the house.
Oh, yeah. Wow.
But if they complain, he just throws them all out. So that's, yeah.
Wow.
But you know, it's difficult because they probably get that they're getting a very low rental for that. Relatively.
Essentially, you're paying for a roof over your head, not a bed to sleep in. And if that is the best you got, that is the best you got.
Yeah.
But I would say go back to the first piece of advice we got from you, right? Be a good person, take care of people. I think that pays off. But so Ben, we sadly got to wrap up because
it's a wrap. Well,
it's a wrap. But I would love it for people to be able to reach out to you, to learn from you, to connect with you. Where do they go? I know you're kind of all over the place in social media. So where are these places to learn from you?
Yeah, so my Instagram is mainly about business. So if you want to learn about business, there's a lot of quotes in there. There's a lot of reels, which are short videos giving business advice. That's Ben Chai Official. Right. My LinkedIn is where a lot of people also connect with me, so they can see all the testimonials and the recommendations that I have. And Facebook, I've got a page which is connected to my Instagram, so it has a lot of similar posts, but I also have a personal Facebook. Now, if you've met me, connect with me on my personal Facebook. If you haven't met me, I probably won't let you in because I don't know who you are. So, but I accept connections in LinkedIn and Instagram for everything else.
Very cool. So that's where we go. We go to LinkedIn, we go to Instagram, we go to your Facebook page, and when we know you, that's when we go to your private.
If you're interested in my personal rubbish, which shows like my daughter getting married or some of my dance performances, or
it's always a bright light on my wall when something nice comes up. Very cool. Well, thank you so much for joining us here today, Ben. Those are some powerful advice. Please go follow him, and again, make sure be a good person, learn the box so you can go outside the box when you need to. And I'm blanking. What more did we have?
Yeah, so add value to others, get some education, start on a small project.
Thank you, that's what it was, start small. Yeah, I was blanking.
Learn to be a critical thinker, get education from educated people who've done this already. And if they haven't done it, then just go and try searching for answers on the internet.
The truth is out there. So thank you so much for joining us, Ben, and I'll see you soon.
See you soon, Daniel.